Welcome back. My name is Jim Kaseman, and then, of course, now probably you're wondering why I repeat so many things the first minute or so. It's because sometimes this is the first time that people are listening. And so I keep reminding us that we're talking about what's the subject? We want to get to know God intimately. How do we get to know God intimately? By obeying His Word. So, what does He say in His Word about all the different subjects? Like faith. Well, without faith, it's impossible to please Him. Healing. By His stripes we were healed. We need to find out what the Bible has to say, including the subject of alcohol. What does the Bible say about alcohol? And again, my opinion doesn't make any difference. I don't have any, it doesn't count. Your opinion doesn't count either. What counts is what does God say? And so we've been establishing now, we've spent a bit of time talking about the Old Covenant, and we can see that finally Revelation's progressive. It went all the way from Noah's drunkenness to finally in Proverbs, where it finally says, don't drink at all. So that's what we discovered scripturally. Now, how is it under the new blood covenant? And we ended in the last session by talking about three questions that have to be answered. You know, the Greek word oinos, oinos, was it also alcoholic in modern time? Is it always alcoholic, rather? Is that Greek word used always for alcohol? And then alcohol content in the Old versus the New Testament. And then Jesus, of course, when he turned water into wine at the wedding at Galilee, at Cana of Galilee, was the wine alcoholic or unfermented? All right, so here we go. An extreme response to the first question says that the wine mentioned in the Bible was never alcoholic. This view is certainly false. False. That wine was never alcoholic. False Old Testament warnings about fermented wine, and we've read that Proverbs chapter 23 several times now, verse 29 to 35. And New Testament warnings about drunkenness and the addictive power of wine point irrefutably to the availability of alcoholic wine in Jewish society. So in the New Testament, in where we are with the Jews, Jesus, and the church afterwards, the whole new blood covenant, the whole New Testament time that we live in now and have for 2,000 years, alcoholic wine was readily available in the Jewish society and now in all societies of the world. An equally indefensible view, however, is the assertion by some that all wine mentioned in the Bible is alcoholic. Now, that's not true either. The assumption behind this argument is that since refrigeration was unavailable in ancient times, there was no way to preserve wine in an unfermented state in the warm Mediterranean climate. This view ignores evidence from ancient writers such as Pliny and Colmelia, who described the production of non-alcoholic wine known as always sweet. Now, to preserve wine in a non-alcoholic state for long periods of time, the standard practice in ancient times was to boil the fresh grape juice down to about a third of its original volume. The resulting condensed juice was very sweet, and because of its high sugar content, it both resisted spoilage and did not ferment. Later, water could be added back to produce reconstituted juice. Alternatively, the condensed juice could be used as a sweetener both in cooking and in the production of other wines. Sometimes it was also used as medicine. When boiled down even more, grape juice yielded syrups and jellies, which were often used as preservatives. Fresh fruit, such as pears, for instance, were often packaged in grape juice or in honey to keep them from spoiling. And here you can see Columella, or whatever, I don't even know how to pronounce all these names, but these are all ancient writers back from those times. Now, sweet wines, generally non-alcoholic, were attractive in the ancient world since there were few sweet beverage options than as compared with the vast array today. In other words, today we have all kinds of opportunities to buy grape juice as unfermented and other ways, because we have refrigeration every way. So we have a big selection of unfermented juices. Praise God. And because fermentation chemically reduces natural sugars found in grape juice to alcohol, alcoholic wines contain less sugar than unfermented grape juice, and thus they are not as sweet. Since sweet wines please the ancient palate, different strategies were employed to enhance or retain the sweetness of wine. The most common method, as mentioned before, was to boil juice and then later add water to reconstitute it. This practice accounts for many, although not all, of the references to mixed wine in ancient writings. At other times, water was added in order to dilute fermented wine. Perhaps this reduced to its percentage of alcohol is simply to make it go further. Sometimes spices, perfumes, and resins were added to wine to enhance its flavor. These account for a few of the references to mixed wine. However, the more common practice was to mix water with wine. Various dilution ratios are mentioned in ancient sources, and likely the ratio varied somewhat according to personal taste. In general, about 3 parts water to 1 part wine seem to have been typical. The 3-to-1 ratio is explicitly mentioned in both Hesiod, Works and Days, 596, and Talmud, page 10108b. On occasion, low-sugar alcoholic wines were sweetened by mixing in boiled down juice concentrated. Acts 2:13. Sometimes in the ancient world, as in modern times, alcoholic wine was consumed in order to become intoxicated. The god of wine and revelry was known among the Greeks as Dionysus and among the Romans as Bacchus. Riotous drinking parties and drinking contests held in honor of this pagan god are well documented. It is unlikely that the wine used at such events was diluted with water. However, wine was used as ordinary beverages normally, not as intoxicated, and was diluted. Typically, defermented wine had an alcohol content of about 14%, the point at which the alcohol kills off the yeast and terminates fermentation. If alcoholic wine is diluted as a 3-to-1 ratio, this makes the resulting mixture only modestly intoxicating, being about a 3.5% alcohol. In contrast, few who drink wine today dilute it with water. This means that unintentional drunkenness is much greater danger for wine drinkers today than it was in the ancient world. The danger even increases more when mixed drinks containing distilled liquors are consumed. Any alcohol consumption leads to some impairment of a person's motor skills and thus decreases his or her ability to operate an automobile or other machine safely. So there you go. In the New Testament times that we live in right now, all the way from Jesus' time through today, there's sweet wines, unfermented grape juice, and then there's those wines that are fermented, and then they had mixed it together with other things, including water, to dilute it, to bring it down, and to the 3.5% alcohol. And you can add strong drinks to that, and of course that increases the percentage of alcohol. And so today, people have a greater chance of getting drunk on wine at 3% alcohol, if it's diluted, 3-to-1 ratio, and you have a greater chance of getting drunk. So it's in our society. I guess that's all I can say. And so here again, we'll just terminate this session, because we're going to switch over to Jesus now and wine in the New Testament beginning the next session. So again, you just be blessed in everything you set your hands to do. Praise God. We'll see you in the next session.